The Hero Network Show is brought to you by Escalate Performance Solutions, your partner in improving and growing your organization. Elevate your performance, achieve your potential. Learn more at www.wescalate.com.
Craving the authentic taste of Mexico? Tepatitlan Mexican Grill has you covered. Every dish is made with love and tradition. From sizzling fajitas and savory tacos to our famous enchiladas, we bring the flavors of Jalisco straight to your table. With one convenient location near you, we're ready to serve you fresh and delicious Mexican food. Yeah, this is it at TepatitlanMexicanGrill.com. Tepatitlan Mexican Grill. Taste the tradition.
Hello, Houston, and hello, USA. This is Vicky Cruz with the Hero Network. Now we are on TV, and join me today is my co-host, really good friend, Mr. Victor Escalante.
Vicky, how you doing
The ride or
today?
die right here. Woo! Victor Escalante. So you may have already heard of us. We have the Mission One USA News podcast, and we also have the Hero Network on live streaming. But now, today, we have the Hero TV Network.
We're going prime time.
We're going prime time. And joining us today, as we had made mention, is going to be our Dr. Marisela Jimenez.
Well, Vicky and Victor, congratulations. This is a special day, and we will see so many more things happening, and this is a great beginning. So I am very, very excited to be here.
We thank you, and we're so glad you're here, because I really want our nation and our city, most importantly, to know who you are and kind of how you just embrace the Mission One USA about the unity in the community and for all. That's what I love about you.
Well, when I heard you talk about the mission and how everything became an idea to what you're doing now, I just found alignment, not just with my childhood, but with my mission in my everything that I do. Every day I wake up and I'm there to do some of the things that you're already doing, but in a different category. My commitment is to break barriers for many children. And so I'm a volunteer, I'm a mentor, and I like to be behind the scenes, because then I don't have the restrictions to do the things that I really want to influence in our communities.
Wow. Well, you have a powerful story, and I'm sure Victor has a powerful question, because right now he's looking at me, and I'm like, I already know when he's ready to shoot away, fire away. I already know it. What do you have?
Dr. Jimenez, tell us, what is the through line? Talk about your passion, the origins, the genesis of your passion to get to where you are today, because you're going to tell us a little bit more about where you are and where you're projected to be. So tell us the through line.
Yeah, well, thank you. So yes, today I'm here, but many, many years ago, I was in Mexico. I grew up in Mexico with my uncle and his wife, who raised me. And I still experience their love and their affection. So my parents are with me, but they were so young to raise me. And later on, I came to the U.S. and I experienced so many things that I never anticipated, and that is exactly what has me continue to go into the journey to say, you can have a loving family and peace and a lot of things, but then once you are uprooted from your home and your identity, and then you go into a place where you don't speak the language, you don't look alike, and you are called an immigrant, and you have to check a box that wait, are you Mexican, Hispanic, what are you? And so, Victor, I needed to identify really in my core, who am I? And so now later as an adult, I am here to making sure that many children know who they are, their true identity, and every barrier that we remove them. I believe that we have the social responsibility to remove barriers. And so that's part of my story.
And a follow-up question is, you've worked, before going on the air, you worked in a very important role in childcare, managing a network of different child cares. And so I know that you've looked at a lot of the data that shows about child development. You were raised in a loving home. Why do you think having a loving network for children is important? So if you're listening to us, listeners, this is very critical. And I want to hear from Dr. Jimenez. Tell us what the data shows as far as why having nurturing parents or grandparents or providers, whether sometimes children are put in foster homes, why having an adult that makes a difference in that child's life, why is that so critical?
It's so critical because sometimes when the baby is detached, and studies are shown, and we will not get here into the research studies, but there are many research studies out there that when a baby has one person, they're nurturing and loving the baby will grow emotionally healthy. So the first foundation of the baby is the emotion, the emotional component. Cognitively, the baby is going to develop, but so Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs talks about safety on the second category. The first thing is nurturing the baby, right? The food, the survival skills. And so when the mother is not there, but there is someone nurturing the baby, physiologically, we are only fulfill one need, but the safety. This is why it's so important. Unlike our abuelitas perhaps in the past would tell our parents, don't hold the baby too much because the baby is going to be attached. That's actually the opposite. Psychologists say, hold the baby, love the baby, nurture the baby, and that's why it's so important to have that baby in your arms. And everyone is welcome, uncles, aunts, abuelitas, to come and hold the baby. So loving the baby and nurturing that most fundamental need in the baby, which is the emotional component, is so important.
Because we have the science that if there's not enough touching of the child and not enough cooing and not enough transmission of affection, it actually stunts their neural development.
Yes.
We have the science.
Great. You know, one thing that's come out that you were talking about, we've talked about the baby component, and one thing that I've known in our discussions and getting to know the amazing person that you are, how you moved to America when you were 15. You were living in Mexico, and you had to visit your identity, maybe moving into a new country, language barriers and what have you. Like, how? I mean, I'm just appalled, knowing how the success you've had. What drove you being 15 to where you're at now? I mean, what happened?
Yeah, so my uncle always told me, and this is in Mexico, to work hard. I do remember one experience because I worked in his grocery store, and for him it was very important that I showed respect, that I was respectful to the customers, that I was respectful to him. So he raised me, and I honor that. And so coming to this country, I always remembered those core values. It didn't matter if I was already 15 years old. I had the foundation for my character, to be honest, to work hard, and to do things. And so in Spanish, we have a word, ganas. If you got ganas, you can get a lot of things done. And when I was, in the classroom and I couldn't do my presentations in English, it was quite frustrating for me because I wanted to thrive. Correct. And so I decided that I needed to do something else. And I always remember, you got ganas, you're going to do it. And so I think about my uncle, the things that he taught me, the moments when he was tough, but yet very loving. And so very empathetic and supportive. And that's my foundation.
Wow. It's amazing. So then you come to America. You did your presentations, obviously, because now you're with the DR. I mean, there's tons of presentations underneath your belt. So you leave high school, and what happened then after graduating high school?
Well, there's a gap in after graduating high school. I didn't go to college, and again, this is one of the reasons that I am just so humbled to know that I did go to college eventually, and in 2016 I completed my PhD. But it's the barriers. That's why I'm so committed to breaking barriers for our communities, because sometimes it's not natural to just know how to do things.
Correct.
And my parents did not have the knowledge how to send me to college. The support system that many families
Correct.
have, sometimes the support system is not about not having both parents. Is barriers. And so for the structural barriers that I can share with you that I have overcome is cultural identity. Number one, I had to realize and accept that I am an immigrant. I will be an immigrant. I will have an accent, and my last name is Jimenez. Embrace it. Embrace it and love yourself for who you are and what you are. The other part was the economics. Embrace that your parents are not wealthy. Embrace that your parents don't have education. Embrace it and do something about it. And accept yourself, not be ashamed, or not to do things that would be inappropriate to disrespect my parents. But the third part, of course, the social implications. I had to accept that the census, U.S. Census, is going to classify me on a box, whether I'm Hispanic, Latina, white. And so over time, I accepted that this is how the U.S. categorizes people.
Correct.
Because when I lived in Mexico, I lived one identity and one identity alone. And here I had to conform with so many different classifications. And the final one is institutional barriers. We have a lot of institutional barriers that we have to conform, but as long as we recognize those institutional barriers and know how to navigate them, I think that's what our children, Vicky and Victor, we need to tell our children, you are going to encounter a lot of issues. Just because you may have this last name, or because mommy and daddy look different, or because this is your zip code, or because for whatever, right?
Right.
We need to prepare our children for the real world of the future. And that's why I'm so committed to making sure our children understand that.
Correct. And I mean, I know when I met with Dr. Jimenez, we talked about Mission One USA and what the mission was. We made it really clear. We're like, listen, I mean, I remember you've asked questions like, how did you get started? And, I explained, hey, listen, this is where it was all community, of course, and the background, HR, I know you're an HR professional and, have the training and the leadership. And so we talked about the unity in the community with Mission One USA. Why does it exist? Is to do that. And the only way that we do that is through integration, right? Through education, integration, collaboration. So with that said, that's why the HERO program, the HERO student program, was developed to teach these children, to bring down the barriers of teaching them that we are different. We are different, right? And how everyone is going through something, right? So we teach them how to encourage themselves that one day we will face, trouble, right? And basically, and we take the H. I mean, I know I'm not giving them into order, but helpful, encouraging, respectful, on task. When I'm listening to her, I'm like, wow, she was already developing her own little heroism within herself to basically, launch fast forward into a successful leader, and I just can't wait. I was telling Dr. Jimenez, I said, Dr. Jimenez, if you were running, it sounds crazy, for president, I would vote for you. Not for nothing. Sorry for everyone else. I mean, candidates that are running out there. Sorry, but not sorry.
Vicky, I actually have a question for her.
Go for it.
Related to the 4 barriers that you identified. No question about it. They exist, okay? We cannot pretend that they don't exist.
Oh,
they do. But I would like to reframe the first one as, with the growing diversity in America, okay? We have the science, we have the data. America is becoming a nation of immigrants.
Correct.
More so to embrace that, to understand that the America is browning. And my question to you is that a superpower to be multicultural, multilingual in today and in the future economy of America.
Absolutely, undeniably. So let's just take a look to 2050. 2050, our communities are going to be so immersed, right, and so diverse, and we need to celebrate that. We need to celebrate it.
Absolutely. It's always an opportunity.
Dr.
Yes.
Jimenez brought a book to the set of Dr. Steven Kleinberg. I'm going to quote Dr. Kleinberg because I'm very familiar with his work. He said that if you close the borders by the year 2040, okay, this is years back, it might even be sooner, America will be predominantly Latino. That's what he said. I'm quoting Dr. Kleinberg. So again, this is a great opportunity to be a Latino because Latinos in Texas are the #1 demographic that is driving new business development, okay? Latinos are influencing the culture with cuisine, with music,
Right.
with fashion. And again, this is our golden era for Latinos. And this is not only for Latinos, this is the era to embrace that difference, which is what we try to do with the HERO program, is to embrace your difference as a superpower rather than as a barrier and a limiting force.
Absolutely. I know one of the conversations we had when it was when we said Houston. I mean, we're able to. We talked about how Houston was strong, how we have the leadership, where we have the resources to become stronger. And I've always, one thing that I remember talking to you, and you mentioned this book.
Yes.
And later on, not within a week, I'm talking because I said, you know what? If we can change our city, we can change our nation.
Absolutely.
Year after
To quote
year.
Dr. Kleinberg, as goes Houston, so goes the nation.
Yes. Tell us more.
Absolutely. So I'm a person who likes to be into the future, to understand what do I need to do to pivot in the present, right, and not be so reactive. And that's just because I believe if I know what's around the corner, that's one less barrier I have to overcome. When I relocated to Texas, and then here to the Harris County area, I was looking for the Holy Grail to understand the complexity of this beautiful place. And I came across this amazing book. I had lunch with Dr. Kleinberg. For 2 hours, we talked, and he explained to me his 40 years of research. And it's amazing. It's only at the beginning. So 40 years of research, we are talking about data, we're talking about science. This is not my opinion or his opinions. This is 40 years of data. So if you decide to get this book, just remember you found out about this book here at the HERO Network.
The HERO Network, Dr. Kleinberg, thank you so much for writing that, because I totally stand with what his message is, and which is why we exist. This is why we exist, Houston, is to bring in the solutions. They say, Houston, we have a problem. We say, Houston,
we have a solution.
Absolutely. And that solution is working together for our future, right? And those are the little ones who today, many lack the leadership. I know that we just, overcame or went through the whole devastation of COVID. Many lost families. Many of our children had trouble coping. Many of our children, so much happens. And I know firsthand because I was in the school. And as Victor had made mention before, I couldn't bring in the parents and the programs and the partners. And it was a struggle for our teachers during that time. I know when we spoke and I shared with you, I said, listen, the unity in our children, respecting, educating the differences, filling and closing those gaps. With that said, your HR background, your education background, the youth, how do you think that together, because you're doing some major stuff right now. You are doing some impeccable things in our community. How can HERO complement what you're doing?
Absolutely. So in triage of working together. You have government,
Correct.
right? Then you have the private sector, and then you, of course, have the nonprofits, the communities, the grassroots, and sometimes they are not working together, right? The opportunity for Hero and everyone to come together is to identify, not compete, collaborate. This is what we need to do.
That's right.
Collaborate and identify the gap, the areas that you may be lacking, and say, Hero has this. But body of government cannot exist without the private sector, so we also need to cultivate those relationships with the private sector. And we also government needs to honor those relationships with the private sector, because it is private sector that provides the financial resources for the government or the public sector. And then, of course, the nonprofits. The nonprofits have such a tremendous role and responsibility within our society, working together. And that's how the solutions will begin to happen.
Correct. I do appreciate what you do and how you deliver. You know, I know that in your mind, and this is why I feel that with our partnership or us, coming together, that I told Victor, I said, Victor, you just have to listen to her. You just have to. What questions do you have for her right now?
You're quite an amazing and fascinating lady. I want to know more. I want to drill down more into that superpower of being bicultural and bilingual. Tell us about that.
Well, let me also disclose something. My husband is Vietnamese, okay? And so I just love the dynamics of the collective nature of family and sharing values. His family came from Vietnam. He was born here in the U.S. I was born in Mexico, but yet two different worlds, and our intersection is family values. We love our family and we love doing things together. So serving. We put our family and our values first, and
helping,
and then everything. Everything begins to happen, and that is what makes us so happy. Happiness is really from within. When you are serving your community, when you're serving the children, when you're doing something, that's true happiness, because that's very fulfilling.
Yeah, we took our children. We had a program. We did a 4-hour course for Hero recently, and I recall the one child who said when she was there, she had went through a loss in her family. She had lost her mother 2 years ago, and then within months or a year later, not even a year later, it was this year, they lost a brother. And
the father was absent from the family.
The father had been absent. He had left the family, I think, for 8 years or something like that. So they were being raised by a grandmother. And just within 4 hours, we put it in action. We grabbed the Hero, we trained and put it into action. And at the end of the class, she said that she felt so happy, that she felt she had purpose, that she had direction. After the whole class in itself, she was like, Ms. Cruz, I just feel like I have hope now inside, because they were their mindsets were still grieving, their little hearts grieving, and their mindsets were just kind of stuck. And so I thank you, for taking that time out to listen to what we're about and what we want to do together, to say, hey, listen, let's make everyone a hero. Let's take these concepts to teach and to cultivate these relationships and integrate the different, because that's one thing I do see, and it's unfortunate, that I don't feel that there was a lot of integration. Maybe in corporate America, right? Maybe in corporate America, but
so here's let's just separate. Sometimes the corporate America values are imposed in the school spaces, and it's prematurely. Let's understand that our children need to be inspired. Remember, we started with love. We started with a framework and the foundation to have that unconditional love and acceptance. And our children, and I said this, Victor, because I'm a mentor, and I do serve in different panels in different schools. And so I see that lack of confidence in some of these students, boys and girls, and they have asked me this question: how do you get confidence? And so I think here we have the opportunity for parents and the teachers and the administrators, instead of putting so many expectations on these children, begin to find out what is going on in the life of those students and make sure that a child fulfills his or her full potential and not a cookie cut, template, because every child is so unique. And so I remember this young girl, she came from Sri Lanka, and she says, this is my first year, and I just heard you talk, and I just love everything you said. And I said, but I love your name, and I am going to learn to pronounce your name, because everyone was calling her by her nickname because the majority of people could not pronounce her name. And I said, I will learn your name. Teach it to me. So when we say those things, I can say your name, or I've never heard your name. That is a disrespect to our children, and this is why our children are not growing up to being confident and outspoken.
Correct.
Because they feel that they have to apologize and they have to be subdued. And in our community of Latinos, we need to rise up and we need to be confident and we need to speak up and have that voice and not subdue it.
Why are you smiling at me?
Because I have a question. You know me. So, Dr. Jimenez, I'm sure you're familiar with the study done, I believe it was at Stanford. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Of children that were asked in first grade, can you draw, can you sing, draw, sing, and dance? They all said yes. 100% said yes. They followed them through school, all the way post graduating from college. Same question. Can you sing? Can you draw? Can you dance? The majority said no. I want you to speak at length about that confidence, that inner creativity, that uniqueness that children need to understand, and our community needs to understand that that innate creativity should never die. If anything, it should be cultivated. Right. Yes, we need to send our children to school to learn data and to understand how to process data, but it's the arts, is the unique confidence that is going to get you far in life and as society.
Correct.
Look at how Houston is so culturally diverse, Vicki, to where we embrace all the different cultures. There's over 100 languages that are spoken in Houston, okay? So talk about that.
Yes,
Dr.
absolutely.
Jimenez.
So children, Albert Bandura talks about children learn from us, right? The modeling, the positive and negative model. So we respond to positive or negative responses and punishment. Over the years, these children likely were continually corrected by adults, because we adults sometimes want our children to conform to an expectation. And so the way I say this is we're clipping their wings.
Yes.
There's a beautiful poem by Rumi that talks about us having wings, but over time, the adult fears and culture, this is why I say this respectfully, sometimes our culture may prevent our children from reaching their full potential. And that is, we need to make sure we're cultivating, we're nurturing, and not punishing. So if parents don't like something about their child, then identify why does it bother you. Do a self-analysis. But if your child displays the happiness and being an introvert versus an extrovert, then cultivate that. It's a gift and it's a personality. Know the difference. And so in the workplace, one of the things that I did a research study, and I found out certain people move up the ladder as we talk. They get promoted faster, and you may wonder, how did that person promoted in a year or less or two, and I've been here for 5 years, right? So there's the imposter syndrome. Sometimes as Latinos, we hold back because we are told, don't brag. If you speak up, you're going to be accused of being arrogant. And so we need to make sure that we are accepting of our talents. If we went to college, excellent. But if we did not, well, we know skills. Let's talk about what we do, whether it's our hands or our mind. So that confidence is going to show, but we have to cultivate it. Sometimes it's very hard to have someone who's already grown up and who has been traumatized over the years to show that confidence. In corporate America, we talk about executive presence. And so it's the confidence, but it's, I love myself, I accept myself, and I may not look like you, but I am
Who I am.
who I am.
That's right. That's right. I love that. I love that. And so, go ahead, Victor.
She knows me.
I know him. It's like he wants to say something. Go ahead.
So, Dr. Jimenez, I also come from a corporate background. I've seen the interplay and the corporate games that are played in HR, and people that are promoted, people that get the preferential treatment. What message do you have for our audience that is the difference, that makes the difference, based upon research, based upon your own experience, and based upon the marketplace, that children need to focus on, and families that are watching us that need to focus on what really is critical? What is the difference that makes the difference?
Yes, so it's going back in the people who, children who are born in the U.S. as compared to children who were brought to the U.S., like myself. Our culture from where we came is beautiful, and so is this culture in the U.S. Blend it, embrace it, and so you don't have to choose between one culture and another culture. And the researchers have said, a research study I read, that in our culture, sometimes we see something else as superior because that person has a different complexion, or because of the eye color, or the facial our face, right? So there is beauty in the eye of the beholder. So we have to make sure that we are telling our children, you are beautiful, and your name is just sounds just right, and helping our children understand that there is no need to apologize.
Correct.
There's no need to apologize in us as adults. We have the responsibility to helping our children accept themselves and accept each other, and not going to the classroom believing that they are less because their skin is different, or their last name, or the neighborhood where they lived. So it's acceptance, it's self-love, and it's very simple, and yet something we still have to learn to do.
Absolutely. And I know that, of course, we are here, and it's not for anything. I mean, you're an excellent leader. And if you had to change matters, if you had to make change, today in our city, right? Because we're concentrating, because we've just said that, but in our city, what would be the first thing you personally would change?
One of the things that I immediately would change is reassessing, doing an impact analysis in the leadership, the people who sit in certain power positions, right? There are 4 categories of power, and we're not going to get into those power positions, but I think it would be very important to identify people who have character, integrity, vision, and those people need to come and have a seat at the table and create a diversity of decision making. And I think that's what's lacking in many of the organizations, whether it's government or nonprofits or corporate.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So definitely diving into assessment, seeing where the weaknesses are and how.
The representation. Who's at the table?
Who's at the table?
Who's making those decisions that are impacting our community?
I know. We see it all the time. I mean, unfortunately, and I know that, here with the Hero Network is always about one thing that we said is, how do we get our children to help fill up these gaps?
Yes.
Especially now, where social media, think about it, y'all, we didn't have, y'all, we're Texas, so this is Houston. We do use y'all, but we didn't have the social media. We talked about the self-esteem and confidence and what have you. Now, with children, just pick up a handheld, and because my friend did this, or the leaders here. I'm just thinking about how everything works together here in silos, or, but I'm hearing you and I'm listening, because I know that the gaps that we have is like, because I think about it as I listen, it's like, how do we teach our children? How do we, because we're going forward, pushing forward. And I'm just like in awe. I mean, you said so much today.
Yeah, so the very first thing, parents get ready for that baby, baby shower and the crib and all these things. But I think the last thing parents may focus on getting ready is am I emotionally solid? When this baby is put in my arms, am I filled completely? Have I reached my full potential, I as a human being? And am I ready to love unconditionally this baby and put myself second? And so sometimes there is this little competition. Freud talked about that, right? The Freud and the psychology, going back to child psychology, is if a parent is not filled, fully complete, and his happiness or her happiness is incomplete, then that baby will not have 100% happiness and emotional stability. So
Correct.
I encourage parents, okay, everyone, it doesn't matter how old you are, to examine your emotional well-being, your mental well-being, and not just we have a house and we have the money in the bank account and we have the health care. That is all great, but if you're lacking the most important fundamental things, which is the emotional the emotional foundation, then the baby will not be totally secured, and it's so important.
And I want to piggyback listeners and viewers on what Dr. Jimenez brought out, because we have the science.
Correct.
Two theorists, Piaget, Jean Piaget, as well as Erik Erikson, said that the child before the age of 12 months doesn't distinguish the difference as a separate entity.
Correct.
Apart from the mother, because it thinks it's an extension of the mother. But it's until the child begins to mature that it begins to notice that it's a separate entity, and it starts to spit its food and scream and notice how the parents react, because they're entering into the stage of individuation to where they understand that they're a separate entity. The point that I want to make here is, to piggyback on what Dr. Jimenez brought out, is that the parent needs to be okay. The parent needs to have her, because it's primarily mothers, she needs to be emotionally full so that she can be a caregiver and impart that affection, that warm feeling to the child, because otherwise, if that stage is interrupted, all the ones that follow are not going to develop properly, because it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel wanted. And so it's critical, parents, if you're watching us, to understand that your children need this.
Correct. Absolutely.
If I may say one more thing, as hard as it may be, that baby is exploring his or her world. And so as parents, I also encourage you to exercise the emotional intelligence in your interaction with the baby, because for every time you punish the baby, that's one reason why this baby is not going to develop into the character, the full potential, because continually that baby will feel punished instead of encouraged, punished instead of encouraged. And so there are so many practices it's time to unlearn, because they have not served the purpose. And so we would be having many very, very healthy babies functioning perfectly, but sometimes in the house, we still do what we learn from our families,
Correct.
and they are not necessarily healthy habits.
Yeah, and imagine the on task.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about, if this person's not encouraged to encourage someone else, and then when they can't encourage themselves, how could they actually stay on task with their dreams and their goals, because they're constantly just tearing themselves down?
Yeah, because they don't know how to care for themselves. They don't know how to be a caregiver.
No.
And serve in the community. So how can you be ready to serve in the community and be that leader that we really need in our communities? And so for all Latinos and everyone who's listening, take the moment to examine your character, your behavior.
Yes.
And if you say, I'm just so busy and I just don't have time to serve and volunteer, that is because your life may need some examination. And so when your heart is full and when you know that you are happy, that's when you're ready to give.
You're full.
I am overflowing. I am overflowing.
Absolutely.
As a result of this overflowing, tell us what's in store for you.
Well, thank you for inviting me here. And yes, so I decided that after all these years, I've been serving my community, volunteering, and I like to be behind the scenes. And you may not know, but I'm an introvert, really, by nature. I'm an introvert. So I have decided to run for a state representative for my district. And really is to making sure that once I have a seat at the table, a lot of the solutions that I know already how to deploy are fulfilled.
Right.
And that begins with children. So they are on my agenda. My platform is working with families, daycares, and making sure that the public schools have the funds that they need, not just for the first grade all the way to 12, but when a baby is born and the baby begins to grow in a very healthy environment. And it'll take all of us as the world is getting a little bit more demanding and complicated.
Well, I do know that we were just in a Harris County meeting, and there were how much contributed towards precincts. There was millions of dollars right now. that
If I
they're
remember correctly,
reinvesting.
there was $18 million from ARPA funds that the government, the federal government gave to Houston for early child development. And we're actually working right now on a project that potentially we could be working with some of those children in order to teach the HERO program, not only to the children, but also to parents.
The parents.
So that they really understand the message that you just brought us, to understand that they need to be okay. They need to be loving to themselves instead of punishing, breaking generational curses so that the cycle is broken.
And you know, one thing that's really important as well, I remember in one of the Saturday meetings that we had, Victor, I don't know if you were there at one of the Saturdays, because we would teach on truancy. And I saw such a disconnect between parents and children. It is so important that as a community, or whether it's your siblings or your siblings' children, you know, you see family together, because we know that there's never going to be a peaceful home. Most homes don't carry that, right? But what's so important is that as we dialogue, what we did at that moment in time was just have them look at each other and say, hey, listen, we know that there's issues, because there were barriers. And when these parents, I had them and said, look at your mom, look at your dad, and we were, okay, I kind of got. So what happens is that we see these parents, and it's like, hey, just look at your dad and just say, thank you, Dad. Look in his eyes. Because they never even told a parent, thank you. How much as parents do we need as well?
Absolutely.
We look and we look. I know I did as a single mom. I was a single mom. I had 3 kids. It was challenging. Because one minute I'm like, come on, get your clothes ready. Did you put the clothes in the, just what have you. They didn't do it. It'd be like, it's restless. You come home, you still got to do chores. You have to do homework. I had my own homework, did the kids. So it was just crazy, just absurd. But, there's just so much that we have to train. There's so much work to do, so much work. And we thank you for the education you brought to us. And we believe that you're going places. There's so much in store for you. When I see you, I'm like, wow, I'm so amazed with all your experience and your heart that you have for people.
Thank you. So you just tap into the alpha generation. So this is the alpha generation,
Yes.
children being born from 2012 to 2025, which is next year. That's the alpha generation that we need to really begin to work and raise them, because they are the future leaders. We have leaders, but we want to make sure these children, specifically this alpha generation, is so ready, so equipped, because their life in the future will be confronted with so many different challenges that none of us has confronted, and that is why it's so important. This is why I'm so committed to making sure that barriers are removed, that they have the readiness to work, because they need to make sure that they graduate from school and go into the workplace and continually have to pivot to make sure our economy thrives. Because if that doesn't happen, then we will have many other challenges.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Do you have any other last questions?
I do, since we have a little bit more time left. Tell us, give us your vision. Take us into the future 10 or 15 years from now, what do you envision?
Well, let me just start with the next 5 years. 2030 it marks the year when baby boomers will be exiting the market. We have 75 million baby boomers projected to exit the market, and that means that products, which is excellent for corporate America because they are going to be very busy mass producing products and services. But our young generation will have to work a little bit harder to sustain the services, and government cannot just continue to raise the taxes for us because there are more products and services on demand. So the future looks like this. Higher advanced technologies, we're going to be working with bots. So I am completely open, and I have done research and published on artificial intelligence. I'm very immersed on artificial intelligence, nothing to fear, but our children are native to technology, and so envision technology being our allies with our young children, and then a lot of our baby boomers are going to be enjoying really great amenities because the technologies that are being developed is only to improve their well-being. So, but we do need to make sure that we are very intentional in how we consume, how much we consume, and making sure that everything that we do, it adds value to our lives.
Correct.
So if companies develop a program or a product, but it's not adding value to our lives and it's not preparing us for a better future, and it's only limiting our freedoms in anything that we do, then that's not going to be quality of life. And so the future looks bright as long as we stay tuned in with everything that is changing so quickly, pivot, embrace it, and let's continue. Life is beautiful when we embrace change.
I love that. I love that. So with that said, Houston, I want to thank you for watching our show. To continue to follow us on Facebook, visit we're under Mission One USA. Follow us out on www.missiononeusa.com. And if for our listeners or viewers, how can people learn more about you? Is there an email as well that you'd like to share?
Yes, of course.
Or
MariselaJimenez.com. That is my website, and I'm on social media. And my email is txdistrict150@mariselajimenez.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you again for being here. And to all the viewers, we thank you. And we look forward to what's coming up. I mean, this is our first show, and we have many more to come. In the meantime, do follow us out. Like we said, social media. Victor knows all those platforms.
Yes, if you go to our website, missiononeusa.com, all of our social media platforms are now linked to there.
Yep, so we are on YouTube live streaming along with the Mission One USA podcast, and I'm sure Victor's also linked that up too. But we want to thank you so much, Marisela, gracias for being here. And listen, be a hero. As you heard the stories and you heard all the, just everything that we had to share, be a hero to someone and ask yourself, what are you lacking? What are you missing? What is it that you need? Perhaps you need whatever it could be. Reach out to us and let us know. I mean, there's resources out there for yourself. Embrace your babies that are out there, your children, your neighbors. Just be kind to one another, right?
Absolutely.
That's all we want. So anything else?
That's it.
That's it. So thank you so much, Houston, for watching. And together, let's make Houston stronger, because together, sí se puede, right?
Absolutely.
We can do it.
Thank you for watching the Hero Network. This episode was brought to you by Escalate Performance Solutions, your partner in growth and success. To find out how we can help elevate your organization, visit us at weescalate.com.